Gordon, assuming there is a vote to leave the EU, there's obviously concern around tariffs to continue trading with the common market, and that's certainly a concern of our business if we have to pay tariffs to continue operating in the common market. What can we do to ensure that we pay, frankly, as little tariffs as possible, or none, ideally? And in your own opinion, what's the best option available to us?
All depends on the deal that's done. And if the deal that's done to access the common market is a good one, then you'll save some of that. On the flip side of that, there will be a cost, and therefore there'll be no membership saving. So let me run you through a couple of examples. A lot of people have heard about Norway's relationship, the European Economic Area. Essentially, what Norway does is it's not in the EU, so it has certain increased sovereignty, if you want to put it that way, versus nations that are in the EU. Now, Norway has more control over VAT. It has control over fisheries, but it does a deal to allow European nations to have limited access anyway. And it has full access to the common market. But it pays not a membership fee because it's not a member, but it pays a levy which goes to emerging European states of 95% per head of what the UK pays. So there's no saving in membership fee for that relationship. If you want full access, obviously the EU is going to look at you and say, well, why should we give you free access when you're not a member, when these people are paying X amount to have access? They, in order to trade with the EU, have to apply the same regulations, the same product standards, etc., the same safety standards, and they've got agreements on immigration as well. So essentially, the foreign minister of Norway, Borg Brend, said we are one of the first nations to apply EU regulations, because they need to be whiter than white because they're not members, and we get no grants in return for a membership, and we get no elected MEPs, and therefore we have no say in these regulations. And I think that's quite interesting, because right now, if within the European Union right now, to block a move or to block a regulation needs a certain percentage of the votes. Now, Germany, France, and the UK together can block anything, or just about block anything. If one of those disagrees, then all the small nations get a great deal of negotiating power. However, once the UK is left, Germany and France alone will have enough to have 33% of the vote, and they'll be able to block anything. So if we leave and do a Norway deal and have to apply all the regulations, we don't get any increase in sovereignty, because France and Germany alone will be setting the agenda for EU regulations. So that's the Norway deal. Switzerland has done a different model. Instead of actually doing a full economic area access deal, they have done a series of bilateral trade agreements. The trouble with that is that they're not allowed full access for financial products. Now, financial products are really important to the UK banking sector. Germany and France are really not happy with the amount of euro trading that's done, trading in the euro by the UK. They'd like to see it centred in Europe. The UK, London, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Manchester would all desperately need an open finance market. Switzerland doesn't get that, and it still has to pay a levy, but not the full levy. You'd maybe cut your membership fee by to about 55 to 60%. So essentially, those are the two deals which people thought about when you were talking about Scottish independence. But it's different now, because there's the other option is to do a TTIP style deal, like an American deal, or a CETA deal like Canada has done. But you wouldn't have any levies there. You wouldn't have any fees to pay. But at the same time, you'd also have limited access to the market. And if you do a deal that has limited access to the market, then the scare stories about job losses and economic growth slowing down start to become a reality. So the issue is that you could easily say, well, we can do a Norway-style deal, but a Norway-style deal would not give you any real boost to sovereignty, wouldn't give you any real saving on the membership fee, and it would give you no say in the regulations that you'd have to put in place, and you'd also still have the immigration regulations. So the deal that makes sense economically, if you're out with the EU, doesn't make sense to the Brexit campaigners, because those are the things they actually want to achieve.